Why Miles Morales is hated. Hello YouTube, welcome to the Superhero Commentary. We discuss all things comic book related. Today's subject is Miles Morales. Miles Morales is obviously a character growing in popularity. With his animated movie franchise and his inclusion in the very successful Peter Parker-centered video games from Insomniac, he has had more attention in recent years than in his entire existence, which by the time of the recording of this video, has been about a decade. Despite his growing fan base, the character is viewed by many as a very controversial individual within the comic book realm. Why is this the case, however? Let's discuss a few reasons. Reason number 1, bigotry. Many fans of Miles Morales insist that the hate comes from the fact that Miles is Afro-Latino and bigots just don't like minority characters. While there may unfortunately be some individuals who are simply that closed-minded, it seems unlikely that this is the main cause of the controversy, or even a large part of it. Otherwise we would see backlash towards other minority characters such as Cyborg, Luke Cage, Black Panther, Jon Stewart, Static Shock, Shang-Chi, Black Adam, The Mandarin, Blue Beetle, Aqualad, Blade, Spawn and many, many, many more. And simply put, we don't see backlash for these characters. Miles in fact isn't even the first or only minority version of a, quote-unquote Spider-Man/Spider character. Characters such as Silk, Miguel O'Hara, Penny Parker and Spider-Punk also exist and they do not receive hate. So this reason appears to be a very minor issue, if even an issue at all. Reason number 2. Addition by subtraction. When Miles was first introduced within the Ultimate Marvel comic books, it was after the death of Peter Parker. While it was a compelling concept to see someone else pick up where a young Peter Parker left off, it did unfortunately have to come at the expense of not only the most famous superhero of all time, but one of the most popular adaptations of said character. People love Spider-Man. It's that simple. They don't want to see him die. So Miles' introduction was already built on a very rocky foundation. This in fact was so unpopular that it led to a massive loss in sales and the cancellation of the Ultimate Universe, which then led us to Miles being introduced into the mainline universe known as 616, not as a new character, but as Spider-Man, to coexist alongside an alive and well Peter Parker, who is also called Spider-Man. This is a problem. Which takes us to our next issue. Reason number 3. Miles is too similar to Peter. Miles has very few differences from Peter. He's very intelligent, quippy, he's born out of tragedy, holds the same moral code of with great power there must also come great responsibility. He doesn't kill, he is accidentally bitten by a radioactive spider which was originally considered to be a one-in-a-million phenomenon. He battles the same villains and in some versions even dates essentially the same girl. This makes Peter far less special, unique, interesting and one of a kind. When Spider-Man was first created, he in part became so popular because no one else was like him. He wasn't simply a speedster, super strong, or could fly. His power set stood out because they were like no one else's. He was the first major superhero to be a kid and not be a sidekick. Everything from the animal he was themed after to the style of his costume to his amazing origin story was unique to him. Not anymore. As now just about every one of those things can also be said of Miles. When Miles is around, Peter isn't special. Miles has differences, yes, his parents are alive, he's not in poverty and he has a few bonus powers. But these examples are all superficial and they're not what makes a character. Even variants of Peter Parker himself have differences like these in other universes, but that doesn't change the fact that he's still Peter Parker. Same motivation for existing. Miles is simply too similar to Peter. Reason number 4. He's perfect. Character flaws are a very compelling part of a narrative. It gives the consumer something to root for and keeps the story engaging and unpredictable. Miles has no flaws. He's just awesome. In the early days of his existence, the writers flirted with the idea that Miles had coward-like tendencies and this hindered him. But this was very quickly overcome and never really addressed again. Within Miles' stories, the only things that ever truly hold him back is external, meaning the problem is coming from someone else and not within him. This makes for very uninteresting storytelling. The character never grows because he has nowhere to grow. There is no finish line because he's already there. A lack of flaws is also why Rey from Star Wars is so disliked. It's just not compelling. Peter on the other hand is stubborn, headstrong, cocky and a little arrogant. This gets him into very interesting situations where the reader cheers as we see Peter do the right thing despite this internal barrier. I suppose this is the one major difference between Peter and Miles. Reason number 5. Anyone can wear the mask. This catchphrase was coined in the film Into the Spider-Verse, a movie about Miles becoming Spider-Man after the death of Peter Parker. At least this time it was a Peter we didn't care about. Many say this was something that Stan Lee himself said. They take this quote.
One of the greatest things about Spider-Man's outfit,
What?
he is completely covered. So any kid could imagine he's Spider-Man because no color of the skin shows. He could be black under that. He could be red, he could be yellow, he could belong to any race. And that
True.
wasn't done purposely, it was done accidentally. But I think it was the best thing we did, making him so that he could be anybody under that costume.
Let's unpack this a bit. He says any kid could imagine their Spider-Man. Who is he talking about? Well, you and me. The consumer. Anyone of any background can imagine their Spider-Man because Spider-Man is for everyone. He wasn't being literal about anyone being under the mask within the comics. Sure, it could have been anyone that was bit, but the fact remains that it was Peter. His actions is what made the name Spider-Man so loved and coveted. So when Stan says anyone can be Spider-Man, what he's really saying is anyone can be inspired to be like Peter, because Peter Parker is for everyone, no matter their race or background. Suggesting that Miles is needed so Afro-Latino kids can imagine themselves as Spider-Man is to suggest that Peter was only made for white kids, which is simply not true. Peter is for everyone. This is also true of black characters such as Black Panther. Can only black kids be inspired by him? Absolutely not. After all, his costume completely covers his body as well. Division and segregation should never be the theme of these characters. Lee wanted us all to be inspired by and relate to his heroes. Reason number 6. Miles Morales is not Spider-Man. Yes, he is called Spider-Man, but he is not the character that has had 60 years of massive pop cultural impact. He is not the character who comes to mind when the name Spider-Man is said. He is not the character that made everyone want to be Spider-Man in the first place. Even his merchandise simply refers to him as Miles Morales. This isn't to say though that he and other fictional characters can't narratively earn the name if done right, but when people say he's not Spider-Man, what they mean is he isn't the one who made the name something to be earned. In truth, Spider-Man isn't special to people. Peter is. And with Miles often only being around to replace Peter, there will always be backlash. Solution. So how do we stop the hate for Miles Morales? Well, whenever Miles is a factor, the conversation is always brought up. How should we get rid of Peter? Kill him? Or retire him? How about we stop having that conversation and instead talk about how we can insert Miles into the story organically as his own unique character that does not infringe upon, cut short or diminish Peter's story or life. Miles is not the only controversial Spider-Man. Ben Reilly from the Clone Saga and Doc Ock as the superior Spider-Man are also greatly disliked by many. What's the common denominator? All three of these Spider-Men affect Peter negatively and result in Peter no longer being alive or no longer being Spider-Man in real time. Parker fans don't want either of these outcomes. So here are two solutions. Make Miles from an alternate universe where Peter was never Spider-Man and Miles is the Spider-Man of that world. This keeps the Spider-Bite 1 in a million and opens up new possibilities, such as Peter Parker never learning his lesson and potentially becoming the main villain of that universe for Miles. This could be very compelling. Or, allow them to coexist. Nightwing is a character in the DC Comics that is born out of the legacy of Batman. However, he has his own motivations, personality, flaws, villains, love interests and name. He helps expand the Batman character by being his own original character 100%. How can we do this for Miles? You guessed it. Give him his own motivations, personality, flaws, villains, love interests and name. Many Miles fans may claim he already has some of these things, but clearly many disagree. Hence the hate. Conclusion. Spider-Man is a character with a massive franchise that can be expanded on through new stories and new characters. It can be done successfully if done correctly. We'll see if Marvel ever decides to address and fix these issues. Until then, there will be major Miles Morales hate. Whether you agree with the hate is irrelevant. If these things are not changed, hate will continue to exist. This has been the Superhero Commentary. Thank you for watching.